Postscript edit. I regret making this thread already. Story 1. She was in an open relationship with her husband, but apparently the husband didn't think his wife would actually do it and intended to just have fun by himself. So he was very mad at us when he learned about it. Story 2. She was hot, and her husband was cool with it. The second time, a guy wanted to borrow a DVD and offered his wife in return. She was okay with it. My wife's divorce wasn't final when we met and got together, despite them being separated for a year, so technically I was sleeping with a married woman then too. Story 3. I was 19 and she was 35 with 2 kids. Apparently, they were already splitting up or in the process, and she just wanted intimacy because her partner had a complex about his small size and couldn't perform, so she was sexless for a long time. It was the right place at the right time. She was a long-time customer at my work, and we were always chatting. She came into my work and asked if I was single. And then she asked if I wanted to engage in a relationship. I did, and at that age, I was not really thinking about the situation, just that I was getting to have an intimate experience. Story 4. There's a lot of cheating going on in the world. I would hate to be cheated on. It must be terrible to be with someone who is constantly open for upgrades or change. Story 5. She's very attractive, even more so with her clothes off. That's usually what gets me to sleep with her. I also love her to death, and I have to believe she loves me as well. It's been an ongoing thing we do now. It started before she was married, but we've kept it up even after she got married last year. We're celebrating our first wedding anniversary in November. Story 6. I was young and just out of college. She was in her mid-30s. First, I didn't know she was married. We dated for a while, and when I eventually found out, I chose to continue seeing her. I was fairly naive in my mid-20s, and I probably should have caught on sooner. One time, we met up for drinks, and when I walked her to her car, I saw a kid's car seat in the back. I asked her about it, and she played it off. I didn't mind dating single mothers. I figured she was embarrassed by it. I left it alone. However, I had been to her place before. There were no signs of kids or a family, so I was a little confused. A few dates later, we were eating on a restaurant's outdoor patio, and a guy she knew stopped to talk. He mentioned that he ran into her husband a couple of days before. He said it in a way that was very, "I see what you're doing here." That's when I asked directly for what was going on. She said she was married with kids. She was separated from her husband. We hadn't been going to her house. Instead, we were going to a friend's house who knew she was dating someone outside of her marriage. In my mid-20s, I guess I didn't have the experience to spot the red flags. I don't know why I decided to keep seeing her. She was great to talk to, and dating was awesome, but her husband definitely didn't know about me. She made it clear she wanted nothing serious. I wouldn't say I was a home wrecker, but it's probably the right term, and I'm in denial. We dated off and on for about 2 to 3 years. That was about 15 years ago. We're still friends on social media, and I saw she's back with her husband. They never officially divorced. Now that I'm 40, married with kids, I can totally understand the position she was in. I've even been there myself. I think a lot of relationships struggle when they have young kids. I'm not sure what caused the rift in her relationship, but whatever it was, she felt that she couldn't be appreciated by her spouse. Overall, it's probably one of the few relationships that has taught me so much, even long after we stopped talking. Being in that relationship was a blessing and a curse. It was amazing being with an older woman for all the stereotypical reasons. On the other hand, I was surprised how easy it is for a married person to step out on their relationship, which has caused some irrational fears and anxiety in the relationships that followed. I think from the experience, my own marriage, and seeing friends in similar places, I've realized 2 things. Long-term relationships are really hard, and every relationship goes through very challenging times. Every relationship will hit a point where a breakup or divorce is justified. It's just up to the people in it to decide to continue or not. Everyone is seeking to have some need fulfilled in their relationship. The unfortunate truth is unmet needs place partners in a position where they can remain unhappy or be unethical. Some people can remain unhappy for a while, but they won't remain there forever. Story 7. I was feeling lonely and going through a dark, self-destructive phase, and they came on to me. It was a thoughtless move for the thoughtless person I was, with no excuses, though I rationalized it at the time. I'm not pursuing her. She's throwing herself at me. Her husband is a thoughtless person. Karma got me back hard several times. I'll never knowingly do it again. Story 8. So there's a girl I've known since high school, and we were each other's first time. After high school, we broke up, and she got a boyfriend who got her pregnant. The guy was a piece of shit, and although we separated, we stayed in contact. One thing led to another, and we slept together again while they were together. She ended up breaking up with the guy and becoming a single mom. I really don't want kids, having grown up around a lot of them, and she knew that. So we stayed friends with benefits. Somehow, this friends with benefits relationship has lasted through multiple boyfriends. And now she's married to a great guy who takes care of her and her kids. She herself has a good job, but even now, the relationship persists. The thing is, excluding me, she wouldn't cheat on her husband, and excluding her, I would never cheat on anyone else. We really are friends and discuss normal things like her family, work, and other general topics. We make stupid jokes and go out with each other's friends and family for drinks and whatnot. Just normal friends until we get each other alone. Then we do things that are bordering on nasty levels to each other that other significant others don't do for us. I'm rambling. Really, I don't know why we continue to do it, but it's gone on for nearly 15 years, and I doubt it'll stop anytime soon. And yes, we both acknowledge it's messed up. It's a surreal experience having someone remember to show off their engagement ring to you when you're about to have intimate moments with them. Story 9. Her husband went on a 3-month 4x4 holiday with his friends, leaving her behind with their son. They owned the shop where I used to buy my favorite cigarettes. My friend suggested to her that we should date since she always smiled at me. She came to my place and it just happened. And again and again. When her husband came back, she convinced him to take us all out to dinner with her family. Felt so awkward. Story 10. Her ex was in jail for a very good reason, and was going to be in jail for a very long time because of that reason. Because he was an evil person, he absolutely refused to sign the divorce paperwork while he was in jail. She was saving up the necessary money to handle it all through lawyers and courts. We were together for 2 years about a decade ago. We broke up and stayed friendly. Last I heard, he was still in jail, she got her divorce, and she's living a good life now. Story 11. I was 19, and one of my workplace managers sat with me at lunch. I don't know her exact age, but she was in her late 40s or early 50s. She looked incredible, and I generally would not go specifically for older women. We got to talking about lots of stuff. Her husband was apparently cheating on her. He works around the country and is away for days at a time, and for various reasons, she was convinced he was seeing other women. She just wanted to feel desired, and I guess asking a really young guy boosted her confidence more than an older one. We were seeing each other for about 4 months. Turns out the husband actually was cheating, and she was correct, so I have absolutely zero regrets. This is what I tell myself to convince myself I was a good guy. The truth is I would have had a relationship with her regardless of her husband's infidelity. She was just attractive. Story 12. My first trip to China. She was the friend of my friend's wife. They all thought the husband was a complete loser. The man regularly criticized his wife about her looks and size despite her being fit and beautiful. The man ended up abandoning her and her child to undergo a gender transition and start a new life a year later. No regrets on my end. Story 13. Twice for me. She became the work wife. I was single. We just bonded. She said she had a horrible marriage. It took at least a couple of years before we had sex. It lasted 6 years, and I gave her an ultimatum to leave her husband since she talked all the time about divorcing him, but she said she would stick with him. The second was an old high school friend. We became friends again before our 20th high school reunion. She also said she was in a bad marriage. We talked a lot on the phone before the reunion, and when we met, we had sex. She divorced her husband 5 years later after her youngest graduated high school. We've been together 5 years now but haven't married yet. Story 14. Women are great liars as well, just saying. My brother fell victim to that whole "she is in an open relationship" nonsense. Her husband found out, and clearly it wasn't true. My brother was the fifth victim. The man took his wife's phone. She thought she had lost it. So he went and found the men and talked to them, never raised his fists. Most of the men were apologetic, apparently. One was a young man who thought he was something special. He was put in his place. The husband confronted my brother. No violence occurred, as my brother is 6'6" and built like a brick house. My brother took him to the pub and bought him a meal and a beer. They are good friends now. The man divorced his wife and kept the kids. He has since remarried another woman. They have been together for 6 years and counting and have a blended family of 8 kids in total. Story 15. She told me a story about how he was probably off being unfaithful with other people. She showed up at my house one night dressed very attractively in a short skirt, tall socks, and high heels. Couldn't resist. It was all a lie, and I cut ties with her. Story 16. I was 17, and she was 49. She was married to a wealthy man. They had been together for about 4 to 5 years at this point, with no kids as far as I remember. We worked at a seasonal job. She did it for the fun and perks, and I did it for spending money like all 17-year-olds. She joked around a lot about working for something to do. Most of the workers were either high school, college students, or 30-somethings doing it for the perks and spending money. Anyway, one night she took me home but had to stop at her house first and do something. She was very generous and kept asking me if I needed a drink or anything while I waited. I sat down on the couch and she joined me. It started with her sitting on the couch with me, and it ended with sex. It was kind of weird, honestly, how it all happened when I look back on it. A few days later, she quit the job, and I never saw her again in person. One night, a few days later, she called me and said what we did was a one-time thing and that it would never happen again. I did it because I had broken up with my high school girlfriend right before Thanksgiving. We were both seniors. Ironically, we got back together and dated again after Christmas break until I went to basic training. The sex with the married woman happened over Christmas break. This all happened almost 3 decades ago. As a much older person, I realized how stupid it was. Story 17. Push to do it? A single man is single. If someone sleeps with him, it's on them. People stay in broken relationships all the time. They keep the comfort until they can find something better. It's not a single person's responsibility to keep someone else's wife loyal. Story 18. She and I had known each other for about a year, and I found each very attractive. We would always flirt, but I wouldn't go any further. I was also friends with her husband, and one day I was hanging out with him alone when he confessed that he had cheated on her multiple times and would likely do it in the future. After that, I decided that I wouldn't feel too bad about sleeping with her, and since I was single, I started making moves. I never told her about his cheating, and she and I had a friends with benefits arrangement for almost a year before I met someone else and broke it off. It was absolutely the best sex of my life, hands down. After I broke things off, she started pursuing me pretty aggressively when my girlfriend wasn't around, but it was over at that point. Eventually, her husband figured it out and confronted me about it. She was not present at the time, so I just said, "Are we really doing this? If so, we can all 3 sit down and completely clear the air." That was the last I ever heard of it. Obviously, we are not friends anymore, but as far as I know, they are still together. Story 19. She said she was already checked out of the relationship and planning a divorce because her husband had cheated on her. She was my type and just flirting so much with me and being so friendly towards me and no one else. I really tried to be her friend and talk with her and hang out. One night, we went on a friend date that seemed a bit more romantic than others, and we had sex in my car. It was really hard to say no to her back then. I didn't really see any negative consequences if we could just stop there. But she was really into me and I was into her. I'm kind of glad we went through that experience, but not really, as I lost a friend in her. She realized she needed to still work on her marriage to help raise her kid properly. I also feel bad for her a bit because she's not in a good situation right now, but she'll get out of it in time. I think from my perspective, it helped me fulfill a basic want that I thought I had. It helped me learn a lesson about who I give my heart to, about how to date and how to be confident around people I'm interested in, and it gave me a good perspective on my dating goals and how my actions weren't in alignment. Would I do it again? Tough call, but probably not. I wish I had a better head on my shoulders back then and to be the one to draw the boundary. Frankly, I think she and I could have been amazing together had I met her after she got out of her current situation, but also amazing friends had I just said no. Story 20. Their mouth was very convincing. I also didn't know they were married until after the fact. You don't ask if someone is in a relationship if you don't intend on dating them.